Our right now, we do not have a quorum. But we can still do the openings, introductions, additions to the agenda. I will start as the vice chair of the advisory committee, Will Steinweg, with Ms. Birkenfeld, RFPD.
Bert Padron, Columbia County Emergency Manager.
Jason McCoy, Unit Manager, ODF.
Mark Celine, IT, C91.
Josh Marks, Assistant Chief Scappoose Fire District.
Greg Brody, Westport Fire District.
Annelle Hooper, Operations Manager, Columbia 911.
Vicki Nichols, CFO, Columbia 911.
Mary Jo Beck, Office Support, Columbia 911.
Mike Fletcher, Executive Director, Columbia 911.
You have attending remotely, Chandra Egan, CAD Specialist, Columbia 911.
Thank you.
Since we do not have a quorum, we cannot approve minutes from the January 30th meeting. We can move on to the appointment of committee members and alternates. Jason McCoy has moved into the county, so we can bring that to the C911 board to appoint him to the committee. Moving on from this, because we don't have a quorum, this is going to be more of an informational meeting, so we can move on to district updates. Danelle, looks like you're up with an operations report.
Sure, just to summarize what's happened since we last met. We had two of our staff leave. Jared moved out of the area and Gibson moved to a secondary PSAP over at the Port of Portland. So we are down two, but we're up three. So we just started one in March and we have someone starting in May and someone in July. Our hiring is open for entry level through May 15th. Our lateral hiring is always open and never closes. We had three internal promotions. Frank, Bree, and Rich are now lead dispatchers and they're doing well and learning all that they can. Our staff participated in a few events since we last met, the Columbia County Career Fair. Jennifer and Rich attended that and thought it was very beneficial. Northwest Leadership Seminar, we sent 3 staff members. And then week before last was National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. And here I'd just like to thank all of the user groups that showed appreciation and recognition to our staff. We're working on various projects in the building. Our Power FTO, it's our electronic DOR daily observation record training tracking system, is all launched and working really well, and we're building our power policy. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on in operations?
Thank you, Danelle. Moving on to equipment and technological briefing, Marks.
So we've got a couple of projects that have been occurring. We recently had a large upgrade for our Motorola phone system that's proceeding well, and work has essentially completed here on site. We do also have a admin phone upgrade that's going on. You may have all noticed the gate is currently not totally working, the call button there. We have approved Pacific Automation to move forward with replacing that system and maintaining it for a 5-year contract. Work is continuing at Meisner. I don't know, Mike, you can talk about the radio stuff? Okay,
Yeah.
I will leave that to you.
Pest control?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, pest control, sorry, yeah. You may also have seen a small fence around the perimeter of the building. We've had an ongoing issue with mainly possums making it under the building and passing away and generating a rough odor for our dispatchers. That's been ongoing for many years. We have just completed the installation of a perimeter boundary fence right at the edge, which will hopefully prevent that problem from recurring.
So, any questions for Merckx? Awesome. Moving on to the director's report.
So I'm going to follow up with where Merckx was just starting is our Meisner construction. So we are in the last few days, weeks of that project. They are starting today migrating our equipment from the old shelter to the new. and installing additional antennas to the tower that's been built up there. Following that will be decommissioning of old structures and equipment, installation of new security fencing. And we are working with ODF in modernizing our lease agreement up there because it's rather antique. So that's going well. With that, Meisner project is the last leg of our phase 3 microwave upgrade. We've been pausing on that until that tower was constructed, so that is part of this work as well. Our next gen radio project. So you may guys have known from, I wasn't here in January, but we issued an invitation to bid to the other 3 vendors. We received 3 no bid letters, so we canceled the ITB. We still have a quote from Motorola, and Federal Engineering has completed their evaluation of that proposal, and it is very promising for the district. So legal counsel and I will be meeting with Federal later this week to get their actual report and get the notes on that. Following that, we'll most likely be scheduling a meeting between the advisory, the users, and the board to a presentation. So I think most of you know that Columbia 911 is part of the greater Portland UASC region. And as that, we belong to something called the Portland Dispatch Center Consortium, PDCC. And it is a group that manages the comms portion of RDPO's request for UASC grants. And we've been doing that for 20 years. And recently, there was some work with PDCC. We hired a third-party vendor, Mission Critical Partners, and their project, which is grant funded, was for them, Mission Critical, to do a resiliency and redundancy study of the emergency communication centers within the UASC region. So that's Clark County, Multnomah, Clackamas, Washington County, and Columbia County. So there's about between 8 and 10 of us. Includes Port of Portland, Bowick, Cressa, CCOM, LOCOM, WACA, ourselves. And they're doing this resiliency study. They've been working on that for the past 4 or 5 months. We don't expect their final report for another few months, but we've gotten updates from them monthly as to what they're finding, and they're making it known some of the body of what they're finding and potential solutions for all those emergency communication centers. One of the things that's specific to us, they gave us some preliminary information, which is our inability to relocate if we had to. You know, if this place was either uninhabitable due to internal or external causes, we have no real way to pick up and leave and go to another center because all of our stuff is tied to this building. The others have fallback locations. We do not. So one of the things that was identified, and the timing was very good for us because there was some reprogramming money. And you guys know how grants work. Sometimes a recipient of a grant doesn't utilize all the funds that they were applied. They have to give it back to RDPO. So those funds become available to the UASC region. And we grabbed onto that and asked for a request to fund what are called Motorola's all-in-one. So they're like tough books, but they're really designed specifically for our 911 phone system. And what they give us the capability is to take those basically tough books, but they're connected to our SEEB, Central Electronics Banks, for the 911 phone system, and we can start taking phone calls externally. Traditionally, there's a system in place for us to throw our circuits to another location, but it's hard point to a hard point. So we could conceivably have some new site, let's say the new Scappoose Police Station. We would throw a circuit and we could be able to answer 911 calls there. However, all we would get is a desktop phone, right? We'd pick it up and that's all we get. Answer 911 with it. None of the information behind that phone number and phone call we would see. It's just literally picking up like you do your house phone. These things allow us to have the full suite of what we have capable in the room. So we get all the data that comes with those phone numbers and phone calls. And so we asked for these workstations and we were provided the grant funds to do that. So we have several of those coming to us. So that gives us the first steps, one of the primary steps of being flexible to relocate somewhere else. So I'll pass that on to you. Merch talked about our 911 phone system. That was a very heavy lift for the district and the staff to go through that. So thank you everybody for that. Want to point out on that front desk is a copy of our proposed fiscal budget for this next year. Make it available to you guys. Take it, give us any input that you would like, answer any questions you have. Either Mickey's available for that, I can help with that. But it's for your review. Oh, it's online. Excellent. Save the paper. We did have a resignation of one of our board members, Zone 2, which is Rainier and Global area. We put it up on our website today, and it will be published in local newspapers this week. So if you have anybody that you know may be interested in serving on the board of directors for Zone 2, and that's the Rainier Global area, they can apply, send me an email, a letter, and provide it to the board for review. We have our local option levy that will be on the ballot for this. It's not quite May, but for the May election. Have any questions on that? Feel free to reach out to me. I'll help guide you. The last thing on my director's report is the district embarked on working with a consultant, doing a leadership class for folks that are in the admin side and the 3 new lead dispatchers. We're working with a company called Stewart Consulting Group. They're based in Bremerton. The instructors are Dr. D. Hicks. He's a neuropsychologist. And his partner, Donnie, I'm not going to mention his last name because I'll butcher it. But they're working with our staff to self-manage skills, including how to become resilient, how to lead in the unique work environment of emergency communication centers, how to manage conflict and solve complex problems on the fly, the high cost of negative workplace, how to create and maintain an intentionally healthy culture, how to address performance problems, challenges of leading different workplace generations, and the discipline of direct communications. These guys do this with emergency communication centers all across the country. We've seen them work here locally, in Oregon and Washington. And they have conducted 2 sessions here, and it's enlightening, it's fun, it's humorous, but it's down to the point, very efficient training. So I would highly recommend them for your organization if you're interested. And Mr. Chair, that is my report unless there's questions. Any questions for Mike?
What happens if the levy doesn't pass?
So we have a loss revenue reserve fund, and it's intentionally built for that. It's the exact, well, it's within a few $100s of what we would lose by not a renewal for that first year. That'll hold us just as we are today. It'll give us the opportunity to go back out to the voters twice, November and the next May. Beyond that, I was asked this question recently. So what if it doesn't fail repeatedly? The next logical thing is we've done the study, what those dollars represent. That levy equates to, depends on the year and the revenue streams, but between 43% and 48% of our needed revenue. So technically, the entire admin side from me through Chandra would be gone. The only person that would have to save, and even though we couldn't afford her, would be the CFO, just because we still have to pay bills, we still have to do payroll. So somebody has to manage the finances of the agency, but everybody else would be gone. Or the only other logical thing is we start charging user agencies. And that represents $1.8 million per year. So there'd be user fees applied to the cities and fire districts. I'm starting the draft formula for that. It's not pleasant.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike. This brings us to our roundtable. Includes communication policy issues, interdisciplinary items of interest, effective practice tips, and other comments by attendees. Anybody like to add to a roundtable? Hearing none, any announcements?
Our next meeting is scheduled for July 30th. Same time, same location.
And any other announcements?
I have a question about the next date and time,
Yes, sir.
depending on what happens with this fire season.
Yeah, totally get
The
that.
likelihood of having a quorum, if we start getting into it like the middle of July. It might be better to consider moving it up or postponing it. Otherwise, several of the fire folks won't be able to make it. I mean, we could try call in from the line, but that's not always reliable.
Yep, we've experienced that, and so we're open to that as well.
We'll probably play that one by ear once we get closer to it, month or two out. Anything else? Well, hearing none, and since we don't have a quorum today, go ahead and adjourn at 12:24 hours.
Great job.